Hi everybody, Erin here. Today I'm going to be doing a book haul from a bookstore. And this is one that's like a month old, at least. I believe it was late April or well, maybe not at least, but it's late April, early May when I went to Saskatoon, Saskatchewan to visit with some family, do some stuff like that, just do the general, I have a weekend off, I'm gonna go do something thing. So I met my family in Saskatoon, we did some walking around, but before everyone else in my family really got there. My mom was there, but she was busy with some other activities that she was doing. She was part of a weekend there, a weekend event. So my husband and I had some time, and we'd heard about this bookstore. And I think I mentioned it on Twitter. I think I posted a link to it on Twitter. And it's this bookstore in the middle of nowhere. It's well, not in the middle of nowhere, but about 45 minutes west of Saskatoon, there's a little town called Purdue. I knew the area, I knew where Purdue was. I actually thought it was a little closer to Saskatoon, but it's not. It was a 45-minute drive, and we did it. We had nothing else to do on the Saturday, or Friday, so why not? So we drove out to this bookstore in Purdue, and this is the bookstore on the outside. So Purdue is a very small town. We had to have cash to buy the books, and I went, he had reasonable prices on his books, right? Like, he wasn't selling them at $1 a piece. He knows the value of the books he's selling, and so I think our total was rather expensive for the books we bought, or the number of books we bought, but we found some real gems, honestly, that it's not like we can find them anywhere else. My husband had to go get cash because I didn't have enough cash on me. I think I had like $10 or $15 thinking, hey, it's a used bookstore, how much am I going to spend? So he had to go and find a bank machine. And there was one at the Co-op gas station on the highway. That is the only ATM machine in this town. It was out of service. So we ended up, I was still at the bookstore chatting with the owner, looking through all the books, because, like, these are the books. I mean, this is what it's like. It is packed to the rafters with books of all genres, all types, everything you could possibly think you're going to find there, you will find there. He's got theology books. He's got classics. He's got, like, just mystery, thriller, romance, all of that. Like, the genre fiction is soft covers on one wall, hard covers on the other side. It was fascinating to walk through. And I mean, the books are like stacked on the floor, they're stacked everywhere. So it was really interesting to kind of poke through. It was hard though, because they were double layered on the shelves, to figure out, like, so I'd sort of start pulling books off and I'd be like, no, nothing there. Go into the alphabet where I thought I'd find, because it was all alphabetical. And so I went to where I thought I'd find some Ian Rankin books, and I started pulling off the shelves, and I was like, you're standing there in a precarious position, so maybe I didn't pull off books as much as I could have or should have. That wasn't really the purpose of going to the store anyway. It was more to see this store. So my husband, like, to get back to the town and what it's like, my husband went to the gas station, the ATM machine was out. They wouldn't let him, like, he went, so he's like, okay, fine, I'll buy a bottle of water, some snacks for the drive back to Saskatoon. Not like we needed snacks for the drive back, it was a very short drive. He's like, can I get like 30 bucks or 40 bucks out? Also, can I get 40 bucks of cash when I buy these things? And they're like, yeah, no, we don't do that. And so he ended up then finding the only, because he then asked, he's like, well, where's the nearest bank machine? Because yours is out of order. And they're like, Bigger or Asquith, which were both like a 20-minute drive. And he's like, is there a bank in town? So he ends up going to this bank, and he's like, they don't have a bank machine. I mean, so then he goes and he's talking to them, and he's like, well, how can I get cash? And he finally goes, can I get a cash advance on my credit card? Sure, yeah, we can do that for you. Absolutely, we can give you a cash advance on your credit card. They had to bring out the old slidey machine and, like, put the paper in, or put the credit card in, put the paper on top, to give him a cash advance on his credit card. So that was how we paid for our books. It was a bit of an adventure just paying for the books. But yeah, this bookstore is just awesome. So the story, like, we asked the gentleman about, like, the guy that owns it, about, how he came to open this bookstore in Purdue, because I knew it wasn't there when I was growing up. And he actually moved from New Brunswick to Saskatchewan back like 15 or 20 years, was it 15 or 20 years ago? Yeah, something like that. I think it was in the 2000s he moved from New Brunswick to Saskatchewan. partly because of the climate, partly like there was a few reasons why he did. And he brought all of the books because he owned a bookstore out there, so he brought all of the books with him. And I think he said it was like a couple of semi-trucks and like this the story of how he got the books out there. And it was really interesting talking to him. And I'm kind of disappointed we didn't buy more books there than we did, but we found some real cool gems. And at that time, when we went there, I was like, I just want to go and see this bookstore because I've heard about it. I've read about it on the internet. My mother-in-law's told me about it. You know, there's multiple people that have told me about this. So I decided, yeah, we want to go see the bookstore. And then I felt like we needed to buy some books because, I mean, books. So we picked up a few books. And I was still in this point of, I don't really want to buy a lot of books. I've got a lot of books on my shelves. You know, I've got specific books. They have to be in a series I'm reading, or, you know, there was very specific requirements. And I didn't find many that met my requirements. But I did find some interesting books, and so did my husband. This first one is one of my husband's discoveries. The Mars One Crew Manual. Yes, this is an actual technical manual. Can you see that? For the Mars One mission. I have no idea where this came from. It's actually got an embossed stamp there. And it's really kind of fascinating. So, July 1st, 1995, dear crew member, congratulations on your selection to the Mars One crew. You're about to realize one of the greatest dreams of mankind, to visit another planet, Mars. Through you, all of us will share in this momentous event. So, yeah, my husband saw this and had to have it for obvious reasons, wouldn't you? So, that was one of those. So you can see why, you know, that these are unique books. I mean, they weren't books. Sorry for the bag rustling. Someone just left these in their bags. I don't know what they were thinking. But yeah, so that was a really cool find. And it's not like something that I can find at Indigo or, you know, any of the used bookstores around me. Like, that's going to be a pretty unique situation. So Mars 1, 1996. I picked up Ruth Rendell's Inspector Wexford and Unkindness of Ravens, which, as I was standing there, I kind of felt like this was the second book in the Inspector Wexford series. It's been almost a month. I probably should have checked that by now to see where it falls. But I did start this series this year. I have From Dune with Death sitting right here. These are my finished books for the year, these two shelves here. So I picked this up because I really enjoyed the first one, and this is a series that I think I'm going to enjoy continuing with. So that was another book I picked up. And that one, because it's an older series, is a little bit harder to find in Canada. Or not in Canada, but it's a little harder to find in used books. Like, this book was published in 1985, which becomes, you know, it's easy to find current releases that are used, except in certain specific circumstances which you guys are going to laugh. I'm going to film it as a second video, but I actually went to the Calgary Big Book Sale on the Sunday, which was the last day of the book sale, and they had, all of their books were $2 a piece, instead of on the previous days they're $4 a piece. And yeah, I went a little book crazy. So did my husband, so it's not just me. Also in Purdue, we picked up Great Canadian Fishing Stories That Didn't Get Away. So this was just kind of sitting there by the door, and yeah, so it's just another little bit of Canadiana, a very unique book that you're not going to find elsewhere. So a book of short stories, very short stories, because I don't know how many there are in here, but it's a very short book at like 141 pages. So, and then I picked up Dennis Lehane's Moonlight Mile. I believe this is, I haven't exactly been reading the Kenzie and Gennaro series in order, but I have Sacred hanging out on my next in series shelf, and I feel like Moonlight Mile is the book that comes right after Sacred, or it's either right after or I've read the one right after. Sacred, oh, these aren't in order. Gone Baby Gone, yeah. So anyway, Moonlight Mile I picked up because I'm really enjoying that series. I haven't read a book in it in a while, but I have I don't know why I put it back there, but I have been really enjoying that series when I have been reading it. And then finally, the weird book that I picked up. This one I saw immediately when I walked in. It was like, you walk in through the door and the stack of books that were on the right had this sitting on top, and it's Red Lights on the Prairies. It's written by James H. Gray. Now this talks about how Canada was settled, the West was settled, and the role that prostitution played. And so it tells you the stories about red light districts of the early, I don't know, it doesn't even tell me on the back. Yeah, so that's talking about Alberta, Saskatchewan, possibly Manitoba, and some of the history of those areas. And again, this is a book I have never seen before. It actually, he had quite a price on it. I didn't realize he has the prices on the inside cover. I didn't realize what it was, the price was. But he gave me a deal on it, which was really nice of him, because he gave me a huge smoking deal on it. But he also said he's had it in his store for at least 2 years and nobody's bought it. So he feels that maybe the price was too high. And he thought that we truly loved books, so he was willing to give it to us for a better price. I actually picked up one other book while I was there, or I didn't, my husband did, and he's got a thing for historic, like, classic engineering manuals and guides. And so when we were down in Oregon, and so a couple summers ago, we did this trip, we did a road trip down to Oregon from Calgary. So we drove through Idaho, Washington, into Oregon. And we stopped in some antique stores and stuff along the way, bookstores, everything. And in one of the antique stores, we picked up a book, an engineering, like a actual highways engineering manual guide of the regulations and all of that stuff from, I believe it's the late 1800s. And so in Purdue, my husband found this engineering manual. It's much smaller, it's not as big as the other one, and it's a, you know, leather bound official book, and he's like, gotta have it, because he's kind of he's a engineering technologist, so he really enjoys that kind of thing, and he likes to see how because that's what he does. He actually works on roads and bridges and stuff like that, so he likes to see how codes and stuff have changed over the years, which is really kind of nerdy, but what do you do? I was gonna say, oh yeah, so I was talking to the owner of this bookstore a bit more about, you know, the story, and the building he's in is really unique. Like, it's a really cool building, and it was actually one of the original banks built in Purdue. So this building is over 100 years old. It's brick. He said it's a double layer of brick, so the walls are about 18 inches deep. If any of you are ever in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, here's a map. There's a little town just west of it on Highway 8. I don't even know what the highway is. Oh my goodness, I should know these things. But yeah, there's a little town west of it called Purdue. You go through Asquith to Purdue, and there is this little bookstore. You can't miss it because there's not much in Purdue. The other thing I'm going to do right now is post some footage that this weekend, my husband and I, it was our town's garage sale weekend. Hey everyone, it's me. We're just about to go garage selling to see if I can find any books. It's the big garage sale weekend in town, so we're gonna see what we find. These are the books that I picked up going to garage sales. There's only 6 of them, so it's gonna be a quick little book haul. I got The Temple and the Lodge, which is a nonfiction about Freemasonry, right? So this talks about the Knights Templar, I believe. Yeah, so trace the flight after 1309 of the Knights Templar from Europe to Scotland, and then how that Templar heritage developed in Scotland, and then the Freemasonry that arose from it, and how it merged or became kind of inseparable from the Stuart legacy of Scotland. So that's by Michael Begent and Richard Lee. I picked up Devil Bones by Kathy Reichs. Now, this is in her Temperance Brennan series. This is the next one I have to read in the series, which is Break No Bones. It's sitting on my next in series shelf. And then, as luck would have it, this one comes immediately after that. So this is helping me hit some of my goals this year for cleaning up my series that I'm working on. And then I was able to pick up Shirley Jackson's The Haunting of Hill House, which, yeah, it's a horror novel, but I kind of like ghost stories, even though it probably means I won't be able to sleep. Carrying on, Elizabeth Peters, The Children of the Storm. So I have been reading Elizabeth Peters. I've got The Hippopotamus Pool right here, which is the 8th in the Amelia Peabody series. And I read the back of this and I went, oh, it's not an Amelia Peabody book, because it says nothing on the back about Amelia Peabody and like nothing about the Amelia Peabody series. And I thought that this was, she has written standalones, so I thought that's what it is. But no, it's about 5 books along in the series from where I am. So it's going to be sitting on my shelf for a while I try to find the others, because this is another one that's not easy to find. It's an archaeology mystery series. So I picked up that. And then the 2 books that I have in the truck are 2 hockey books, oddly enough. I picked up Theo Fleury's book, which is about his time in the NHL for the Calgary Flames, and I was a huge Flames fan at that time. I loved Theo Fleury. I loved watching the Flames. I was like, we would go to games and I would always end up on TV because it wasn't a high point in the Flames history. And you know how they like to pick out someone wearing a Flames jersey. Well, when there's like 10 in the entire crowd, it's easy to pick out. So I'd end up on, yeah. So I've got that book. And then I also picked up Jordan Tutu's book about playing in the NHL. And he is the first Inuk descent hockey player to be drafted into the NHL, which is really cool. He was drafted by the Nashville Predators. So he is actually from Inuvik in the north part of Canada. So there's all the provinces in Canada. And then in the north we have territories. We used to have 2, Yukon and Northwest Territories. And then the Northwest Territories were split into the Northwest Territories and Inuit. Inuit? Oh, I feel like I'm saying that wrong. Wow. But anyway, so that's where he's from. And so this tells the story about how, like, after he was drafted, his brother actually died between his being drafted and his ending up in the NHL. And then it just tells, yeah, it tells his story. So it goes into, he ends up in rehab. Now, alcoholism is a known problem in Native communities, and for him, you know, that situation with his brother's death and then moving such a great distance from, I mean, northern Canada, which isn't really, I mean, to Nashville would be such a culture change. I mean, he's not even just moving countries, but like to move from that kind of an area, like it's very sparsely populated, into a city alone would be a big enough change. But then he's got the culture change and he's got the pressures of being an NHL player and all of that. And so I'm really excited to read that book, actually, and see more of his story, because it's great reading those stories about success and the dangers of it. Because, I mean, successful people tend to, regardless of their history, right? Like, I mean, you can't point at someone and go, ha ha ha, this is because of his heritage. It's not. I mean, the amount of drug and alcohol abuse in the world of successful people is I think, higher than the rate of, anyway, let's not get into that because I actually don't know what I'm talking about. So, so there's my little book haul with a lot of chatting, because, you know, that's what I apparently want to do today. I hope you enjoyed this. If you want more information about that book or bookstore in the middle of North Saskatchewan that I talked about, I can absolutely just ask down below, and I can try to provide you with as much information as I have about it, which is pretty limited after, you know, a 20-minute conversation with the owner of it. But yeah, I highly recommend, if you're ever in the neighborhood, to go visit that. And I also recommend, if you are looking for inexpensive books, to try garage sales, because I know I found some pretty good finds yesterday, and I will try to continue maybe this summer doing it, but I thought it wasn't, I've gone before and found like tables of books, and this time it was like a few boxes, and I was kind of disappointed by that. So yeah, leave a comment down below also if you have read any of these, because some of them are really off the wall and out of, you know, interesting finds. But I will talk to you guys soon. Bye.